Hello, I'm Ash, and this is the Vocabulary Podcast. Thank you very much for joining us. In this episode of the Vocabulary Podcast, we are going to be learning vocabulary through a story. Now, if this is your first time here, don't worry. This method of learning vocabulary is one of the best methods you can use to improve your English. Why? Because learning vocabulary with context will give you a better understanding of how to use it. So, let's jump into today's episode, where we look at a really interesting and exciting story. Now, before we start the story, I would like to tell you some of the words that you will hear during this episode. Now, I won't give you the meanings right now, because I want you to listen out for these words and try to figure out the meaning of these words when you listen to the story. You can try understanding them based on the context of the story itself. These words that we are going to look at in this episode of the Vocabulary Podcast are B2 level. So if you can understand and use these words, well, you'll be speaking like a B2 English learner. Let's go through the words together. Now, before we start the story, I would like to give you some of the vocabulary that you will hear when I read the story. Now, I won't give you the meanings right now, because I want you to guess the meanings using the context of the story. And then at the end, we'll see if you guessed the meanings correctly. Now, these words that I'm going to read out to you are B2 to C1 level. So if you can understand and use these words, well, you'll be speaking like an upper intermediate and advanced English speaker. Isn't that fantastic? So, let's get started and let me read these words out for you. The first word is deception. Then we have facade. Up next, obscure. The next word is disarray. After that, we have elusive. Then ominous. After that, revelation. Next, trepidation. And the last two, coerce. And finally, conspire. So those are the words that we are going to be focusing on in this story. So keep your ears open and see if you can spot these words and guess their meanings. Now, let's get started with the story. It's a really great one this episode. The story of this episode is called A Stranger in My Own House. It's a story full of suspense and mystery, and I can't wait to share it with you. The level of this story is roughly B2 to C1 level. Now, let's get started. Are you ready? Sophie had always believed her life was ordinary. A quiet, suburban home, a loving husband, and a predictable routine. Everything seemed perfect. But perfection, as she soon would discover, was nothing more than a facade. It started with a letter, a plain white envelope left on her doorstep, addressed to her in unfamiliar handwriting. Her fingers trembled as she tore it open. Sophie, nothing in your life is what it seems. Ask your husband about the house on Willow Lane. A chill ran down her spine. She turned to her husband, Daniel, who stood in the kitchen, stirring his coffee as if nothing had changed. The sight of him, so calm, suddenly felt ominous. "What is this?" she asked, holding up the letter. Daniel barely glanced at it. "Spam. Throw it away." But Sophie couldn't. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was obscure, just out of reach, hiding beneath the surface of her so-called perfect life. That night, when Daniel slept, she searched their home for anything unusual. His office, always locked, was left slightly ajar. Inside, she found disarray, papers scattered across his desk, maps, and a key. A key labelled Willow Lane. She caught her breath. The letter hadn't been a prank. The next morning, with trepidation curling in her stomach, she drove to Willow Lane. The house stood abandoned, its windows boarded up, but when she tried the key, the lock clicked open effortlessly. Inside, dust coated the air, and the furniture was covered in white sheets. But what was truly unsettling to her was the collection of photographs hanging on the wall. Dozens of pictures of herself. Some from years ago, some from moments she didn't even remember. And then a journal. As she flipped through the pages, her hands shook. The words inside detailed her life with deceptive precision. Her childhood, her college years, the day she met Daniel. But there were also details that made her blood run cold. How he had conspired with someone to ensure she never questioned him. How he had coerced people into keeping secrets. How the truth had been rewritten so that she would never ask what really happened to her parents. A revelation crashed over her. Daniel wasn't just hiding something. He had constructed her whole life. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway made her heart hammer against her ribs. She turned to the window. Daniel was here. Her mind raced. She couldn't let him find her. Gripping the journal, she slipped out the back door, the weight of her reality sinking in. She had spent years loving a stranger, a man who had controlled her world with elusive lies. Now she had to find out the rest of the truth before it was too late. Wow, what a shocking mystery! It kind of makes me want to read on, but alas, we cannot read on because we need to understand what we have just read. An important part of using stories to learn vocabulary is that you go back and actually analyze what you have learned. So that is what we are going to do right now. We are going to be looking at this story line by line and understanding it at a deeper level. So let's start. Sophie had always believed her life was ordinary. She had always, this is past perfect tense. A quiet suburban home, a loving husband, and a predictable routine. So suburban is the area just outside of the city. So think kind of like a friendly neighborhood. So not inside the city, just outside. You know, larger houses, front gardens, back gardens, that kind of thing. So not flats, really, or apartments. A loving husband who loves her, and a predictable routine. A predictable routine is a routine that you can guess what will happen the next day, and the next day, and the next day. It's very samey, it's very similar. So if my routine was predictable, I would know what I'm doing tomorrow at 6 p.m. and the next day at 5 p.m. My day doesn't change. Everything seemed perfect. But perfection, as she soon would discover, was nothing more than a facade. There we go. It's one of our words here, facade. A facade is an outward appearance that hides the truth. So kind of like a fake appearance that is hiding something underneath or hiding behind a fake appearance. That is what a facade is. Let's continue. It started with a letter, a plain white envelope left on her doorstep. So when it says plain white, that means there is nothing written on it or nothing to, no signage or logos or anything like that. For example, if I have a plain white t-shirt, that is a white t-shirt with nothing on it. So if you have a white t-shirt, that could have a logo on it, but a plain white t-shirt shouldn't really have a logo on it. So plain white, completely white. It was addressed to her in unfamiliar handwriting. If your handwriting is unfamiliar, that means it's something that someone's handwriting that you don't know. So you're not familiar with it, you don't know about it. So it's handwriting that you don't know. Her fingers trembled as she tore it open. So to tremble is almost like to shake quite violently. So if your fingers are trembling, it's because you're scared or nervous. Sophie, nothing in your life is what it seems. Ask your husband about the house on Willow Lane. A chill ran down her spine. This is a very common phrase. See, a chill ran down someone's spine. Now, a chill is like a cold, a sudden burst of cold, really. So if you think a chill ran down her spine, it's like, oh, kind of feeling this sudden burst of cold when from the top of your spine to the bottom of your spine. You know that feeling you get when something is really wrong and your hair kind of stands up on end? That's that same feeling. So a chill ran down her spine. She turned to her husband, Daniel, who stood in the kitchen, stirring his coffee as if nothing had changed. The sight of him, so calm, suddenly felt ominous. Now, ominous is a great word, and it's another one of our key words for this podcast. And it is when something looks like something bad is about to happen. So it's giving the impression or giving the idea that something bad is about to happen. So, for example, you can call some clouds in the sky ominous, especially if they look dark and it looks like it's about to rain. It's like, I can see something bad is about to happen. Ominous. So, very, very handy word there. Very useful word. So, when she saw her husband so calm, she felt like something bad was about to happen. What is this? She asked, holding up the letter. Daniel barely glanced at it. A glance is a quick look. So he barely glanced. He almost didn't even look. He just put his eyes in the same direction and moved them away again very quickly. So if he barely glanced, he barely even looked for less than a second. Spam. Throw it away, is what he says. Spam is communication, so like letters, emails, text messages that are not important. Maybe a company sends out lots of marketing letters and you receive them in the mail, in the post. That's spam, really. It's letters that aren't from someone that you know. So I'm sure that some of you get texts from random things once in a while saying, hey, look at this amazing discount we have. That's spam. I don't want to see it. It's not necessary. It's not important. It's almost like rubbish to me. But Sophie couldn't. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was obscure, just out of reach, hiding beneath the surface of her so-called perfect life. Really, really advanced sentence here. Let's break it down together. So she couldn't shake the feeling. To shake the feeling means to kind of get rid of the feeling that you have. So if she couldn't shake the feeling, it's like no matter what she told herself, she still felt nervous or worried or scared or anxious. No matter what she told herself or what she did, she couldn't get rid of that feeling. She couldn't shake the feeling. Very, very useful idiom. That something was obscure. Obscure is our word, well, one of our words of this episode, and it means something hidden or not easily seen. So she couldn't shake the feeling that something was obscure, just out of reach. Like something was hiding from her. Something was trying not to be seen by her. Really, really useful word. Hiding beneath the surface of her so-called perfect life. So-called is a really interesting adjective we put in front of something. And basically it shows that something is fake. Or it appears in one way, but is actually not this. So, for example, the so-called hero. It's like he appears to be a hero, but actually he didn't do anything heroic. right? So so-called is a really interesting adjective. So try using it if something is appearing to be one thing, but is actually not. So her life appeared to be perfect, but it wasn't. So let's continue. That night, while Daniel slept, she searched their home for anything unusual. His office, always locked, was left slightly ajar. So if a door is left ajar, that means it's left slightly open. Not completely open, but a little bit open. Inside, she found disarray, one of our words of this podcast. Disarray is a state of confusion or disorder. So if you say that she found, disarray, it means everything was just thrown about, right? There were papers here, bits and pieces there. Everything was scattered and messy. It wasn't clean. It wasn't organized. Disarray. Papers scattered across his desk. Once again, scattered is like, very, very muddled and spread across the desk. Maps and a key labeled Willow Lane. She caught her breath. So, like this, to catch your breath. It's like you so tense, so nervous, and you catch your breath. You kind of regain composure. You start to breathe again normally. The letter hadn't been a prank. A prank is another word for a joke. A joke. So the letter wasn't a joke played by someone. The next morning, with trepidation curling in her stomach, she drove to Willow Lane. Trepidation, another one of our words. Trepidation is a feeling of fear or anxiety about something that may happen. So it's a bit of a formal word. It's quite artistic. And emotive, and it's used quite a lot in literature and writing and novels. Not so much in conversation, but it's a very interesting word, and it really just means a big feeling of fear or nervousness or anxiousness that something is going to happen. Something bad is going to happen. So, trepidation curling in her stomach, she drove to Willow Lane. The house stood abandoned. Abandoned means that there is no one living there. Its windows boarded up. Boarded up means they are covered with wooden boards. So someone has hammered wooden boards on the windows, covering the windows. When she tried the key, the lock clicked open effortlessly. So effortlessly, without any effort. So she didn't have to force it, just opened. Inside, dust coated the air. So imagine dust coating something is dust covering something. So if dust coats the air is very dusty. And the furniture was covered in white sheets. But what truly unsettled her was the collection of photographs hanging on the wall. To unsettle someone is to make someone feel super nervous, super worried. So when you're watching a horror film or a horror movie, you might feel unsettled. Something is wrong. You feel really, really nervous. Dozens of pictures of herself. So a dozen is like 12. That's what a dozen means. A dozen means 12. So dozens is many 12s of something, right? But that's not really what it means. It just means lots of, right? We just use it to mean lots of. But a dozen means 12 of something. So a dozen cars is 12 cars. But dozens of cars just means lots of cars, because it's like multiple 12 sets of cars. It's a bit of a funny thing. Just understand that dozens means lots. Some from years ago, some from moments she didn't even remember. And then a journal. As she flipped through the pages, her hands shook. To flip through is really to scan or read the book really, really quickly. So you flip the pages, you pass through the pages really quickly. The words inside detailed her life with deceptive precision. So deceptive, it's another one of our words. Deception, it's the act of lying or misleading someone. So deceptive precision, this is the adjective form. So with precision, it's like careful attention to detail. So it's describing some kind of lies that were very detailed. Her childhood, her college years, the day she met David, but there were also details that made her blood run cold. This is a great idiom. If your blood runs cold, it's a bit like a chill running down your spine. We just looked at that earlier. If your blood runs cold, it really means that you freeze and you're just filled with this incredible sense of anxiety and dread and nervousness. So your blood runs cold. How he had conspired with someone to ensure she never questioned him. Conspire, it's another one of our words of the day. To conspire is to secretly plan something with someone else. But more often than not, the thing that you are planning is a bad thing. So normally criminals conspire, or traitors conspire. Perhaps pirates conspire. You know, it's a bad planning, basically. Planning something that is bad, or planning something that will hurt someone. That is conspiring. So they said that he had conspired with someone. How he had coerced people into keeping secrets. To coerce, very interesting word, and it's another one of our words of the day. To coerce is to force someone to do something, but through pressure or threats. So if you don't do this, I'll beat you up. That is coercing someone. Or if you don't do this, I will leak this information to the newspaper. That is coercing someone. So coerce someone is to threaten someone and force them to do something. So Daniel seems like a bit of a bad man. How the truth had been rewritten. Rewritten is written again. So she would never ask what really happened to her parents. A revelation crashed over her. A revelation, another one of our words of the day. A revelation is a surprising and previously unknown fact. So a revelation for her would be, now I realize something. Now I suddenly know, I suddenly realize what is happening. That is a revelation. Daniel wasn't just hiding something. He had constructed her entire life. To construct is to build something. So he had built her entire life. He had made her entire life. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway made her heart hammer against her ribs. If you can imagine a hammer, you hit it very hard. Doom, 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 doom. So her heart is hitting her ribs almost. It's beating so hard. It's hitting her ribs. She turned to the window. Daniel was here. Her mind raced. If your mind is racing, it means you're thinking very fast for what to do next. Right? You're looking around, you're thinking really quickly, what do I do next? She couldn't let him find her. Gripping the journal to grip something, to hold something very tightly, she slipped out of the back door, the weight of her reality sinking in. She had spent years loving a stranger, a man who had controlled her world with elusive lies. Elusive is difficult to catch, understand, or define. So his lies were difficult to catch. It took so long before she realized that he was lying to her. So those lies were pretty impressive lies. They were difficult to discover, difficult to catch. Now she had to find out the rest of the truth before it was too late. And so that was our analysis and breakdown of today's story. Now, were you able to listen out for the key words that we discussed at the very beginning of this podcast episode? You did? Brilliant. Now, were you able to guess some of the meanings of these key words? Now, I know we analysed some of them, but let's go over them one more time to make sure that you truly understood what the meanings of these words are. So, let's start off with deception. Deception, or to deceive someone, is the act of lying or misleading someone. So remember, the words inside detailed her life with deceptive precision. The next word was facade. Facade. This was an outward appearance that hides the truth. So showing one thing, but being something else on the inside or behind the appearance. But perfection, as she soon would discover, was nothing more than a facade. Obscure. This is hidden or not easily seen. So she couldn't shake the feeling that something was obscure, just out of reach. Disarray. Did you get this one? This is a state of confusion or disorder. So inside she found disarray, papers scattered across his desk. Remember, we used it to describe this unorganized mess that she found in the office. Elusive. This was difficult to catch, understand, or define. So a man who had controlled her world with elusive lies. Ominous. Did you get this one? Ominous. It means to give the impression that something bad is about to happen. So remember, the sight of him so calm made her suddenly feel ominous. Revelation. Maybe you got the meaning of this word. It is a surprising or previously unknown fact. So a revelation crashed over her. Daniel wasn't just hiding something. Trepidation. Difficult word here. A feeling of fear or anxiety about something that may happen. With trepidation curling in her stomach, she drove to Willow Lane. Coerce. This was to force someone to do something through pressure or threats. So threatening someone to make sure they do something. So how he had coerced people into keeping secrets. And finally, conspire. This is to secretly plan something harmful with someone else. So remember how he had conspired with someone to ensure she never questioned him. So conspire. So those were our key words for today's podcast. I really hope that you will remember these and try to use these in your conversations, in your writing, and in your general English. Now that you've learned these words in context, let's make sure... Now that you've learned these words in context, let's make sure they stick. Try using some of today's words in a sentence in the comment section down below, and I'll be checking them out to make sure you are using them correctly. And if you want an easy way to store and practice new vocabulary so that you don't forget it, then make sure to sign up to the waitlist for Vocab. It's my brand new application designed to help you stop forgetting English vocabulary that you've already learned. You can sign up with the link in the description below. Thanks for watching today's episode of the Vocabulary Podcast. I've been Ash, this has been Vocab, and thank you for being a fantastic English learner. I'll see you in the next episode. Take care and have a fantastic day. Bye bye.